Good evening on this rather hot and muggy night in Tennessee. What a fun little movie. So if you haven't heard of this one, Book Club, it's about a book club. The thing that kind of kept going through my mind as I was watching it, I think they did this on purpose. It's kind of the first wives club of this generation, which is, fitting since it stars one of the first wives club, But every now and then you get one of those movies amongst the sea of, films targeted for young people. And, I want to say people my age, but even that is, films targeted towards people like me are even starting to fade. And they're, going after, now 20 and early 30-year-olds more so than they're going for me. But every now and then you get a really wonderful movie about older people to remind you, hey, one, we're still alive, and B, there are parts for these really great talented actors other than just playing someone's doing a guest spot on a TV show as someone's bitchy mother, as a lot of these actors have done. So this, and it kind of has a neat hook. It's an interesting premise, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So the story is you got these four friends, and they've been friends forever, and they're at, they're older now. They're in their declining years, and they've either been divorced or they've been married for years, or or their husband just passed on, or whatever the story is. But the thing is that they've always gotten together for this monthly book club, and one of the members, played by Jane Fonda, brings 50 Shades of Grey and makes them read it, and from that kind of becomes the catalyst for them either taking chances in their life and starting to live again, or just being brave enough to go and do things, and yada yada yada. So it's an interesting setup and an interesting hook, and it works really well. I mean, when you get this many really talented actors together, they're going to turn out something pretty wonderful. I'm not going to say it's the greatest movie I've ever seen. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I'm going to say that I've felt for a long time. Everybody, if you've watched these reviews, if you're one of the 5 people who watch these reviews, you've heard me do my rants on comedies and, my distaste for modern comedy. Well, that's increased tenfold when you're talking about modern romantic comedies. I don't think there has been a good romantic comedy in years, maybe decades. The art of it has seemed to have been lost to us. Romantic comedies are all some variation on stupid, obnoxious, disgusting, and completely out of the realm of human behavior. People don't act this way. And one of the reasons I think for that, pardon me, I'm going to be rude here, and I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody, but I think part of that is because romantic comedies are meant to appeal to young people. And even when I was one, and that was true then, it's true now, young people tend to have stupid taste. Sorry, folks, it's the fucking truth. And this applies to me too. Not saying I'm guiltless here. So I think one of the great things about having a romantic comedy starring and about older people is that you can tell jokes about sex. You can have, the stupid thing like the one woman slipping her husband Viagra, and the wacky shenanigans that, spawn off from it. But you don't have to just go vulgar for the sake of going vulgar. There's human motivation behind the act, and there's real human consequences for it. So you can have your comedy, but you also have the human element that now drives the story and actually makes you connect and care about the characters. And I think that's the advantage of doing it with older people and older actors. So the main plot, it's like a lot of these stories, you can kind of tell them, is that, the four friends, and they each kind of go on their own adventure. It seems like Diane Keaton is kind of the main focus, and she's a woman whose husband has passed away, and her two daughters, one of whom is played by Alicia Silverstone, and I didn't realize that till the credits, and it was like, I knew she looked familiar, but I was just like, oh, holy shit, that was Alicia Silverstone. But anyway, her two daughters wanted to move to Arizona, and her two daughters talk to her like she's she's an invalid and all that, but, going to Arizona, she meets this really handsome pilot and starts a fling with him. So there's that story. Jane Fonda's story, I think, is the weakest. So Jane Fonda plays this really successful hotel heiress, or not heiress, but she's this hotel owner who, has just tossed love away. Love is stupid, and she just has sex. She's the Blanche of the story. She's our Blanche. If you're going to use the Golden Girls analogy, Diane Keaton is Rose. Jane Fonda is Blanche, and Candice Bergen is Dorothy, and the metaphor falls apart with Mary Steenburgen, who we'll get to in a second. So anyway, Jane Fonda, doesn't, just wants sex, and she can have that from just these regular guys and whatnot, until her old flame from 40 years ago comes back into her life, and you can kind of guess where this is going. That one had a really neat payoff. I really liked the way, because she talks about, they had this really nice scene with her and her love interest, played by Andy Garcia, I believe. No, he wasn't played by Andy Garcia. But anyway, they have this nice scene where she talks about, she never sleeps with a man. She has sex, but she doesn't sleep next to him. She's never been comfortable sleeping next to a man. And the way this story is going is that this person who, only cared about sex sleeps with the guy. And I thought that was really nice and very sweet and a really romantic payoff. I liked that. It made me feel for a character that I didn't feel that much for. Like I say, hers was kind of the weakest of the stories. Mary Steenburgen has, I think, the second best story. So Mary Steenburgen plays a married woman. She's married to Craig T. Nelson, and they've been married for years, and the whole backstory is they do it like rabbits and all this. They've had 3 kids who we never see, but they haven't had sex since Craig T. Nelson retired, like 6 months ago. And so Mary Steenburgen, especially after reading 50 Shades of Grey, gets all, basically gets horny and is trying to get Craig T. Nelson to have sex with her. And so they have a very funny story. And they both play it really well, and what's great is, again, you have the human connection. She's doing the typical romantic comedy thing. I want to have sex. And he's doing this thing of, hey, I'm retired. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm trying to figure that out. Can you, maybe talk to me or not just post dumb shit, that embarrasses me. So you have human consequences and human emotion, and it works really well. Candice Bergen steals the movie, and it's wonderful to see this movie. One of the best things about this movie is just reminding everybody how fucking awesome Candice Bergen is, because she just is phenomenal. Like I say, she's the Dorothy of the group. She is the one whose husband left her 18 years ago or something like that, and she hasn't had a date or sex or anything like that since. And she finally kind of starts dipping her toe back into the dating pool. And she just steals every scene she's in, because she just has the best deadpan delivery. And her story tends to be the funniest, and in a way the most heartfelt, because she's the character you kind of want to see get back out there. And I don't know, and that's just, I think, just owed to her as a performer, just building up and being able to endow her characters with that kind of pathos without a lot of it being in the script. Like, I can't point to a scene or something that goes, this is why I cared about her the most. It's just the way she performed it, and it worked really well. And a lot of great supporting roles in this. The guy that Candice Bergen goes out on her first date with is Richard Dreyfuss, and he's not in the movie much, But the scenes of the two of them together are just phenomenal. It's really good and really good acting. If I have a complaint about the acting, it's that it falls into that romantic comedy thing, or especially older romantic comedy thing, where they make all the supporting characters act just too much. You know? Like I say, Diane Keaton's daughter is one of whom played by Alicia Silverstone. I mean, the way they talk to her, you know, like she's an invalid. It's like, that is just too fucking much. You know, it's just too, what has spurned this? You know, and it's not believable, because they're just going too big with it. And they, you know, all the people around them kind of act the same way. And I think it's supposed to, what I think they're going for is trying to show how young and foolish all these other people seem to these older characters, but they just come out looking, it unbalances the movie, you know. And when you, kind of like I talked about in other films, when you have something such as the chemistry between these four main actors, which is so good, so believable, so organic, when you have, and even with the other guys, like I say, Candice Bergen and Richard Dreyfuss has amazing chemistry. All of them have amazing chemistry with their others. You know, the guys in their lives, they have great chemistry. When you have that kind of chemistry, it really shows and seems out of place. It is very jarring when it's not shared with the other characters, when they're all so big and such caricatures, you know? There's only two other things I can really find fault with this movie. Number one, and you know, this sounds dumb because this isn't like Avengers or anything like that where the CGI budget is huge, but what few special effects there are in this movie are just fucking awful. Okay, there's a scene where Diane Keaton's new boyfriend, the pilot, takes her flying, and the green screen could not be any more obvious. It is just terrible. And the movie opens with the standard narration where Diane Keaton does a voiceover and, you know, gives you the backstory of all the characters, with some of the worst photoshopped pictures I have ever seen to make it look like these ladies have all been friends for years. You know, like you can almost see where they cut out their heads and put them in a, you know, on a different photo. It's terrible special effects. And like I say, I realize this isn't, you know, a summer blockbuster where, you know, you have, you know, a small army of people, you know, doing your CGI for you. But I mean, come on, you can do better than that, really. Here's the other thing that kind of I didn't like, and I didn't like on a number of levels. It's nothing that ruins the film, and I know some people disagree. I don't like that they used 50 Shades of Grey. Now, part of me disagrees with my own opinion, because one of the things I've always said, and sometimes it gets lost when you're doing a negative review or something, is that, you know, if you find happiness in something, if something speaks to you or you just like it, then you know what? Fuck everybody else. You know? Who cares? If you're one thing I found interesting is that after I did my 50 Shades Freed review, I was contacted by a couple friends of mine who said, yeah, I really hate the movies, but I really love the book, which is interesting to me because, one, I've never met anybody who actually admits to reading the book. And then I asked, you know, okay, so what was it you liked? And they told me, and it was interesting to talk to people like that, because all you ever hear, and all I've ever said, you know, my opinion, is just how trashy and awful these things are. But obviously it spoke to people. And we can bet, you know, same thing with Twilight. You know, I can sit here and badmouth and, you know, critique and talk about the poor directing and acting and the terrible role models and the terrible message till I'm blue in the face. And those are my opinions. But who am I to tell somebody else what to fantasize about? You know? Who the fuck am I? It's none of my business. You know, do what makes you happy. So from that standpoint, I like that it showed that even from something as badly written and done and horrible morals and all that as 50 Shades, it can still have positive ramifications and positive offshoots, and I thought that was interesting. What I don't like, number one, and my friend Elizabeth brought this up, she saw the movie with me, is that 50 Shades, number one, it just has a lot of baggage. And it did feel like, at times, like the movie was almost done as a publicity arm for the 50 Shades franchise to get some positive press, and so I didn't like that. I think it would have been better if they had made up a book series, very similar to 50 Shades of Grey. Maybe, you can even use Grey or 50 or something in the title so we all kind of get what it's referencing. And therefore, you're not tied down to the baggage, no pun intended there, but you still get the message. The other thing the other reason I didn't like it, aside from the baggage, and again, if you like 50 Shades of Grey, good on you, but I gotta say, just watching the one film, I get where the baggage comes from, because it is not, it's not good, folks, and it all the dark stuff that people talk about, yeah, it's there. But anyway, the other thing I didn't like is that tying it so specifically to this point in pop culture dates your film. And I know we don't worry about that as much as we used to, because for one thing, we forget about things as quickly as they happen. So, and the other, with media and everything being so readily available now, you can go back, if you watch this film 10, 20 years from now, you can go back and research some of this stuff. Because, let's be honest, I don't believe 50 Shades of Grey is going to be a thing that really stands the test of time. I could be wrong. I've been wrong. Who'd have thought Ninja Turtles would still be around and popular? Or Power Rangers would be in its, 25th season. Or that we'd be doing, revivals of Roseanne and Will and Grace or Full House, so you never know. But I'm just saying, with pop culture being as disposable as it is these days, I think you date your film when you tie it to such a specific point in history. Whereas opposed to doing something inspired by a specific point in history gives you that freedom to make your film, quote unquote, timeless. Again, my opinion. So that's kind of my big gripes with the movie. Aside from that, I can't think of anything to really get on this movie's case about, because I think it was everything it was meant to be. Yeah, it's a little predictable, and yeah, it was a little, a little cheesy, but in the most wonderful of ways, and the ways that you don't, this sounds terrible. I think I said this during my Finding Your Feet review as well. It's a cliche to say, oh, they don't make movies like this anymore. Well, they don't. Again, a real movie, real characters who have led real lives and real consequences to their actions. I liked that, and it makes you connect with these characters more so than what Katherine Heigl, what Barbie doll Katherine Heigl is falling in love with this time, or I should say Ken doll, but of course who's Katherine Heigl anymore? Anyway, so final grade for this one, I'm gonna go a B+. Again, I don't think it was anything earth-shattering or anything, anything really spectacular, but a wonderful turn by 4 really talented actors, and as well as their others. I think so by a very nice ensemble, a smart, fun, warm, honest film that, especially not just in this day and age, but in this year of just awful movies, it was a breath of fresh air and really made you go, oh, okay, that was, it's nice to actually leave a film and go, well, that was delightful, so I highly recommend this one. So, If you like romantic comedies or you like good actors being funny and having a good time together, and you can tell all the actors were just having a blast doing this, go check this out. And please, younger folk, go check it out too. You might enjoy it too. Don't just write it off as an old person's movie. There might be something in there for you young whippersnappers. So yeah, had a good time with this one. So that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. And until then, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.